Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad to hear this Tuesday morning. Listen, we're going to do a unique show today, something we've never done on Panhandle Outdoors. We're actually going to run our show today without any commercials. It's very important. The information all I'm going to give you and all, it's just a perfect timing, and I know it's okay with the sponsors I spoke to about it. Only out of 1,000-something shows we've done, or close to 2,000, I guess, but we've never run a show without commercials. But it's just one of those things. It took so long to put this video together, like about 10 hours and all, and we just want to run it all the way through. So you asked me, what is the video about? Well, it's about the book, Full Box. Full Box is coming in this week. We're going to have it available hopefully by the end of the week. We're going to give away one on the show, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, one day this week. We're going to draw out a pickle jar and give away the very first copy of Full Box coming out of the boxes. So make sure you register today, because we may even do it tomorrow, but we'll see. So, people always ask me, Coach Chester, how did you do that book? How did you come with that idea? I've been asked that thousands of times, even at these at Appalachian Seafood Festival. Someone coming from Atlanta, Georgia, said, "Sir, how did you come up with that idea?" And basically, I started telling this story to my students, and because they were always curious about it, and I would always tell them the story, and the story evolved into a little presentation without me really trying to have a presentation. So I decided, for the sake of my family, kids and grandkids and great-grandkids on down the line, I just wanted to tell my story of how I did the book. It's fascinating. You go through life and you have these windows of opportunity, and these things happen, and sometimes they don't work out, sometimes they do work out. Well, this particular one did work out, and it was just a dream come true. But it's one of those, you start off, you don't know what's going to happen. You just start doing it, and we've never done this kind of stuff before, and had tremendous amount of help along the way. I'm very blessed to do it. So I want you to sit back, and if you get a chance, just try to watch this whole show from beginning to end. It's not going to have any commercial interruptions, anything. But I'm coming from the heart, and again, Gail did about, like I said, a lot of video, and she just did a good job with it. So if another thing too, the books, like I said, when they come out now this week and all, I'll sell the first set online or whatever. So just email me whatever you want. But anyway, sit back and enjoy this presentation of the story of the book, the story of my book, Full Box. This is the story of my book, Full Box. I often get asked, how in the world, Coach, did you do that book? Where'd the idea come from? So I'm doing this video to pass on down to my grandchildren, and fortunately I hope I have more down the road of great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, so they'll have the story from me. So here goes. This is the story of the book Full Box. I've always loved history. History's been very important to me. I'm just fascinated with history. And of course, I've always loved the outdoors, fishing and hunting and all. So I would listen to these stories. These older guys would tell these stories on fishing back in the day, back in the old boats and all that. So I just would, listen to these stories, and every now and then I'd hear a guy tell another story. And I remember coming home one day, walking in the door and going straight over to Gail. I said, "Gail, listen, I heard this story today. I better think about this driving home. If you'll help me now, I'm going to write a book about it." And she laughed and she said, "Well, I help you, but I think you're crazy." I said, "Okay, I think we're going to do it. I'm just going to start on it and see where it goes." I had no idea where it's going to go, but I knew how to do a couple of things. First of all, I knew how to get a tape recorder and go to these folks' houses or on the dock somewhere, on their boats, and just let them tell me those stories so I could have this story recorded. So I knew that was going to be important. So I just started. I started calling them up, saying, "Hey, can I come over and you tell me that story again?" And of course, they were so gracious, and that was just such an interesting group of people to be around. I'm talking about these old timers in their 80s and 90s, and just want to tell those stories. So I just started getting on the phone, and I would call, and I'll give you an instance. I would call one of them, Captain Virgil Anderson. He was, I want to say, 91 at the time, and I would go to his house, and Miss Mary, and would sit there, and we'd sit there on the kitchen table, and he would tell me the stories. Back, his daddy, his family homesteaded this area around, first in Southport. Southport used to be called Anderson, so homesteaded, then later on moved to the area of where they are now in Grand Lagoon. And he would tell me stories, and I would say, well, listen, you have any old pictures? And I never will forget. Miss Mary said, well, you've got a whole bunch of pictures, but nobody ever want to look at them. I said, I sure want to look at them. I remember her walking down our hallway to a closet in the hallway and reaching up there and getting a little pasteboard box and walking down the hallway, walking back to the table and dumping a whole box load of black and white pictures of boats and fish. And man, I looked at them, I just said, wow. Because you saw how big those fish were and all. And then he would say, well, this happened. So he was telling me stories. And so I'll be interviewing him. And then he said, you need to go talk to so-and-so. So I'd call him up, I'd go talk to so-and-so. So that was sort of like a domino effect. I would talk to one captain and then go talk to another one, and the old boat builder. And the thing about it, though, you couldn't go and just talk, visit with them one time. I mean, first of all, you couldn't get all the information. Plus, they wanted you to come back and visit with them. And I made some dear friends. And I would go back. I'd call them up and say, well, can I come Wednesday afternoon about 4:30? I'd get there about 4:30. Miss Mary would have a warm cup of coffee and a piece of pound cake she'd cooked. And it just became such an honor and a privilege to go all over this area talking to these old timers. And they were eager to, nobody wanted to hear the story. So I knew that the interviews, how important that would be to get that first-hand knowledge of that generation. But I knew that wouldn't be enough to do a good book. So in the meantime, at the same time, this is all simultaneous, started going down to the public library and getting all of the, I went to the microfilm newspaper section. And our earliest copies of our local newspapers goes back to about 1887. It was the St. Andrew Messenger coming out of St. Andrew. The West family and all had that. And they had copies of it on microfilm. I just started cranking it out. Gail would go down there with me and we'd crank it out. And I would, anytime I saw the word fish, if I saw a name of a boat, if I saw Captain so-and-so, somewhere in that paper, I would copy it. And I started building files. At first I had one drawer of files, and I would come home. I just show you some samples of some of the stuff I would have. This file right here, this just says, this is fish receipts, okay? You see all the copies of the fish receipts right here? And all the copies I made just on fish receipts. And they had, back then they would talk about, here's a fine catch of fish. It actually made headlines. That's the front page right there. You imagine nowadays somebody catching big fish and making headlines? But that showed, what that reflected to me was the climate of the area, how important it was as far as the heritage. Fishing was so important back then, and people didn't grasp it now, and that's sort of where I was going. This is just a list of the fish they caught that week. Each man, each boat is named, and how many thousand pounds they brought into the fish market. They recorded that. What a wealth of information. I could go on and on. Here a guy catches a 4-foot lobster. I didn't put that in there, but I just 40 tons of mackerel caught this week. 40 tons of mackerel. It goes on and just on and on. So I got fish receipts, and let's see what else. I found some actual receipts from where they actually put the gasoline in the Martha Lillian and the W.C. Sherman at 20 cents a gallon, and they would fill up the smack, the W.C. Sherman, and to go fishing and all. These are actual receipts and all. I cherish these. These go back to 1920, 1931. And then other files I would have right here, fishing tournaments. We have a legacy of great fishing tournaments. We have a whole section of just fishing tournaments here. Going back, Bear Bryant came and entered some of these tournaments. People all over Alabama, Georgia. You see the pictures right there with different ones that were caught. So Avondale Mills had a folder on them. And then the families. Families always had a special pocket folder of the Andersons, the Rathfields, the Eckers, okay? Just you see how much information just on that one family right there. So that, now I'd go down there after school. I would get up on Saturday morning, schedule an interview, and go to the interview Saturday morning, leave there and go down to the library for the Saturday afternoon. Now I'm talking about a process of about a 3-year process of research, and even doing the newspapers and the interviews, I still felt like I needed more. So along the same time, we started visiting. I went to the Florida Archives over in Tallahassee. They had a wealth of information. Pensacola is an old town. Five different people, 5 different countries ran it and all. So we visited the University of West Florida there, and we actually you know, Pensacola and Panama City actually had some of the same families going back and forth with the fish wherever they were biting. Went down, like I say, the State Archives. Went down to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and it was like going back home there. Because I did go to the library some when I was there, but I remembered when I was a student down there, the second floor was housed all kind of old stuff. And back then, as a young man and teenager, I was not that interested in that old stuff, so I never went up to the second floor. But this time, I went down there and couldn't wait to go up to the second floor of the Spencer Holland Library. So we get up there, and we get a motel, go down, and I go up there and tell the guy, the curator, my name and what I wanted to do. I'm from Panama City, doing some research on the Panhandle fishing, and if he just had any kind of information, I would appreciate it. And of course, you know, they're excited when you come in. He said, I think I've got some stuff back there. Let me go look. So he said he's going about 30 minutes. So I'm just sitting there in the library. They're trying to reflect back one of the students trying to play some kind of game or something. And all of a sudden he comes out with a box full of stuff. The first thing, he gave me some white gloves to put on my hands. He said, I think you're going to like this. And he had some old newspapers, which I sort of already had. But then all of a sudden he had this book about this thick. And he pulled it out and laid it on the table in front of me. And what it was, folks, was the diary of Francis Ware from 1882. The original handwritten diary of the Ware family in St. Andrew. Now, when I saw that, man, my heart skipped a beat. I'm thinking, wow, this is, and I started looking through it page by page. I just got excited. And I said, can I copy this? He said, sure. So we spent the whole afternoon just copying page by page. But what an insight into early St. Andrews, handwritten by, and you know, every day he would talk about what the weather was doing, what the tide was doing, what the wind was doing. And that's how most of the time. Talked about a wildcat got a dog last night in St. Andrew, and it was so fascinating. So I put some excerpts of that in the book also. I did some interviews out of town with C.J. Bryan's daughter, Winifred. C.J. Bryan started the first fish company as far as sending the fish out of town to Atlanta and the Carolinas when we got the ice plants going. And he got caught in a big storm, and it was big news back then, and the boat came back in with the mast broken off, and they thought the whole ship was gone. They came floating back in, and Winifred was able to tell me firsthand that they lived on Beach Drive. The house is still there on Beach Drive. And they lived there, and she talked about looking out the window every day for her dad to come home, and she didn't want God to take her dad because she was a little girl. She told me that story, and that's a wonderful story in there. So anyway, I got all these stories put together. Like I said, this was a 3-year period, and I was just, you know, and I was enjoying doing it. I was spending a lot of time, but it was fun time. So anyway, we started getting together. My daughter Wendy, she was good doing the layout. She started making a little layout for us, and I would get these pictures. And pictures was just a big thing. So I'd get these pictures and we'd put them together. I would tell the story, and Gail would type it up. So it was like a family effort right there. And I didn't know where we were going with it, but I knew we were gathering. I was really getting some good stuff that I knew people would enjoy this because I enjoyed it, but I didn't know how many people would enjoy it. So anyway, get together, get close to the end of it now. I'm trying to cover 100 years of fishing and boat building in the area. Well, getting close to the end of that 100 years and starting to wrap things up, so I said, let's go over, let's make a trip to Tallahassee to Rose Printing, because that's the only printing company that would do hardcover. And I wanted a coffee table book. I didn't want a little paperback book. I wanted a book that people could proudly put on a coffee table. So go over to Rose Printing, and I would sit there and talk to them and tell them what I'm doing, and I'm all excited. And you know, they're just sitting there because they get something like that on a pretty regular basis, and I don't think they shared my excitement. But I told them what I wanted, and we had everything sort of laid out. And I said, listen, I just want to do 1,000 copies, but I want the very best quality paper, the very best quality cover on gold embossed print on a really full color jacket. I want all this. And they looked at me laughing. We can do all this, Mr. Chester. Let us get the price. So they go back in the room, stay gone about 15 minutes, and come back out. And Gail and I were standing there, eagerly awaiting what the price quote was going to be. And come out, he said, all right, now here's the price quote for 1,000 copies of very fine quality book. And I look at it, and when I get up off the floor, I said, listen, I just want 1,000 copies. I don't say 10,000, I said 1,000. It was a little more than what I had anticipated. So I laughed. I said, well, listen, go ahead with it. I knew in the back of my mind I was going to find some money. So with Gail and I driving home, Gail's a little concerned about us spending that kind of money and not knowing anybody's going to buy it other than our family, and our family's not quite that big. So we drive back home from Tallahassee. I said, honey, we're going to do it. I said, if I have to take a second mortgage out on the house, we're going to get the money, and I'm going to do these 1,000 copies, and we'll finish selling those. It'll take maybe 2, 3, 4 years maybe to sell all of them. We'll take that money and pay the loan off. But the most important thing, we will have saved our heritage, our local heritage. These old guys they're something passing away, and pretty soon you look at the age of these guys, and I said, we've got their stories, and we can share these stories with so many people. And I was passionate about it. Talked to a local tackle company if they'll carry it, and he said, well, so we set up a book signing at the Martin Theater, at the little green room, that little room attached to the Martin Theater. Gail had set that up and had invited some people, and I was real excited. We had a book signing like on a Thursday afternoon, and all three of my friends showed up at the book signing. No, seriously, the book signing was really nice. They'd made a cake and everything, and people were in line getting the book. And I said, wow. It was just a special book signing. And people were very receptive that afternoon. One of the people I mentioned in my book, I could not have done it without. One of them was my high school English teacher, Miss Sarah Lamar, from Quincy High School, who at that time lived in Tallahassee teaching Leon. And Gail, I was signing the books, and all of a sudden, I'd been into about 45 minutes. I look up at the door, and there walks in the door Miss Sarah Lamar and her husband. And I just dropped what I was doing. And she was older by now, and drove down from Tallahassee to my book signing. Gail had called her up and said, you don't believe Winston had written a book. And she said, I'm not going to miss that. So they drove down, and I just dropped what I was doing, and they ran over and gave her a big hug. It was that was really a special moment that I never will forget. And it's a special lady. So anyway, we did a book, and that book signing, and I put it in a tackle store at maybe C&G and one or two places, and all of a sudden, I didn't advertise on newspaper or TV, or I didn't advertise anything. I didn't have money to advertise. All of a sudden, people started getting on the phone and called it. Have you seen that book with the Queen Fleet boat on it? And that's Captain Raphael and different Captain Anderson on it. That's a fishing book. This story was told to me. The reason I know verbatim what I said. The guy said, somebody wrote a book about fishing. Well, I'm gonna go get it. And the next day, he'd run down and got a book, and then he'd call somebody else up. And all of a sudden, what's the best advertising ever? Word of mouth. All of a sudden, I was just looking to try to find out. That first week, folks, we sold 500 books that first week. 2 more weeks, we had sold out of 1,000 copies, a full box. I was just stunned. I was happily stunned. I called Rose Printing and said, listen, can you get me another 1,000? These people down here are buying this book. And they were laughing. They said, yeah, well, we already got everything in the press, and we just rolled it off. I drove back over there and picked them up. Well, those 1,000 sold out in 2 or 3 more months. I called them back up. And it was just snowballing. And over the years, we sold like 5,000 copies of full box. And I was just fascinated with it. And I was very thankful. Of course, I thank God for the blessing to have the opportunity to do the book and for it to be so well received. But so many neat things happened. I was able to once the book became popular, which was like the next week, these clubs, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the Historical Society of Jackson County, they all wanted me to come speak. And I really had a fun time doing that, going to meet all kinds of different people. I got to go to my hometown, Quincy, that once a year the local country club there has an author's night. And I was a featured speaker in my hometown. And it's talking about something special to go up there to Quincy in April in the spring time and to speak to your people just that you grew up with and all. That was special. So there's just been so many neat blessings off this book. And so that was basically the story. It was a lot of hard work. It was fun work. But there's so many great stories happened. One story, I was fascinated about this. Southern Living heard about it. Southern Living, I talked to them, and I went up there, and they actually put an excerpt of me all in Southern Living magazine. So that helped a lot, especially when you go to a place like a seafood festival like Apalachicola. But for Southern Living to have your book just mentioned in there was special. Also, one of the funniest stories of all, I was rolling along about 2,000, 3,000 copies. I was sky high. You can imagine. I would get a call. I would deliver books one afternoon, get a call the next day, bring me another box. I'd get a call the next day, bring me another box. So I was just every afternoon after school, I was delivering books. and it was just fun. So I did get a call. Now you understand what I said I spent 3 years going to the library pretty regular, 3 and 4 times a week. So I got to know the ladies down there real well. They were very helpful, and I enjoyed going down there. And anytime I needed something, they would be willing to help. And especially when the microfilm machine didn't work, which was quite a bit, they'd come fix it for me. And so I got to know them real well. And Rebecca Saunders is head of the local historical society, and she's in charge of the library at that time. And she was really just a charming, fascinating lady helping out. Well, I got a call about a couple of months after, maybe 3 or 4 months after. I got a call from her, and she said, "Winston, can you come down to the library this afternoon?" Like in a stern voice, and I said, I thought we were friends. I thought she'd be a little more warm than that. But he had a stern librarian voice. And I said, "Sure, I'll be there after school about 3:30. So all day long, I'm worried. It really bothered me because why would she have that tone of voice? And I started thinking some things maybe had gone wrong. And the first thing as an author you think of is plagiarism. Well, I knew that I had written all those stories myself on my interviews, but I'm thinking, well, maybe some writer along the Gulf Coast of Texas maybe had talked to the same guy, wrote the same story, and he was going to, I was going to get in trouble with plagiarism telling that story. So you think all the things that we always think the worst things. So after school, I'm all work during school. After school, I start driving down there. Man, what in the world have I done? And because it didn't sound good. So I drive up to the library. This one is down at the old marina down there, and I park the car, start walking up the steps. I just get a little more scared that I'm going in, and I open the door, the front door. I look at the counter facing the door, and all 4 or 5 of the ladies that worked there were standing there behind the counter. At the end of the counter was Gail, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, they're going to arrest both of us, and I'm being handcuffed. We're going to walk out the door. Mo's the teacher arrested for plagiarism, and Gail's going to be in handcuffs behind me. And I said, they're going to get both of us. So I walk up there and have a stern look on their face. You know how librarians can look. They just don't look like no one else can. I walk up there, and Rebecca had an envelope, and she handed it to me. And I think as I'm picking it up from her, I think, well, here's a subpoena to appear whenever. So I open it up, and they all staring at me, and Gail's just looking at me with a blank look, and I open it up, and it was a message from the Florida Historical Society. Dear Miss Saunders, we want to inform you that Winston Chester's book, Full Box, has been awarded the best local history monograph for the state of Florida for this year. Would please accept this. Congratulations. Y'all please come down to our annual meeting to accept the award. And when I read that, when the Florida Historical Society gives you an award, this is a group of college professors in history and some of the best historians in the state. And what happened, Rebecca Saunders had sent my book without my knowing to them to be judged and looked at, and they were crazy about it. And they sent back that award. And you see the award here, just a wonderful, exciting time. I was jumping up and down. Then they all busted out a big laugh then, so the joke was on me. So that's just one of the many heartwarming stories that came from Full Box. As I look back on it, there's so many things to be thankful for. I was very blessed, first of all, to have the opportunity. But I could not have done it without my family. Gail and Wendy were there all along the way helping. My son Chip was so encouraging and instrumental in helping me out. People like Scott Lindsay. Scott had me, he used to do the Red Holland show when Red wasn't in town. And Scott had me on the Red Holland show several times, and he was very encouraging. And that helped, back then that show reached out to a lot of folks. I got some really good leads from being on that show. So all those little things, everything sort of fit together where it fell into place. I want to read you from the author, the very first page I did, and what I'd like for you to do. I do this in my class, okay? The very first couple of days when my seniors are in the class, I will read them the first page of the book. And then we'll go through 180 days together. And the very last thing I do with my seniors, before they walk out the door for the final time, they will sit there, and I will go to the last page of my book. And it sort of coincides with our class. It sort of sums everything up. And folks, I tell you, I stand at my back door and hug and shake hands, and after I read it to them, and I go back there, and they'll actually, I've experienced over the years some kids, girls and boys, with tears in their eyes as they're hugging me, and that book, that last page, it really hit home to them. They've really enjoyed it. So what I want to do, I'm going to read you from the author and then I want you to look at the book yourself, in the library or your own book or a friend's book, and then I want you to read the last page with the passion that I wrote it. Okay, this page here, I just asked so many people to help in Panhandle and Brook Lord. They just go through so many names. And I want you to look right here to the right in the center, on the right corner over here. You know, this is my book. I can say what I want to. I said that from day one. I wanted to make sure, y'all, if I send this to the editor, he might have edited this out. But I thank God for giving me the ability and opportunity to research and write this book. I could not have done it without that. So you see that? On the next page, a dedication. Dedicated to my brother Wayne, who was my best fishing buddy, and to my wife Gail. And you can, my brother passed away at a fairly young age from a car accident. But he and I, man, we used to do a lot of outdoor stuff. Now I'm going to go ahead and read you from the author, and then we're going to wrap it up, and I want you to read the last page later. I'm not really sure what makes someone want to write a book. Maybe it was a seed planted at a young age by a good English teacher, or perhaps some memorable experiences with a brother and a dad. Maybe it was sitting down and listening to old-timers talk about the good old days and having a deep down burning desire to save all the stories and pictures so others could read and see them. And maybe, just maybe, it could be the encouragement and love of one's family. In my situation, it was all of these. And in my anticipated one-year search and gathering of information and pictures and neatly making a book, it turned out to be a 3-year, unforgettable journey. Hard work? Yes. Trying to read an 1890s microfilm copy of the St. Andrew Messenger was not my idea of fun. Neither was regularly staying up hours after my bedtime writing a story. And it wasn't exactly a thrill getting up on a beautiful Saturday morning and having an interview scheduled rather than enjoying my beloved outdoors. But all of this was overshadowed by the journey itself. The satisfaction of finding that one missing part that would make the story whole, and the excitement of locating a long-lost family member who remembered those days. But the parts of the journey that will forever be etched in my memory are the times that I sat in the homes of the old captains and boat builders. Usually it was a late afternoon around the kitchen table, oftentimes with a warm cup of coffee. It was there that I would sit, transfixed, listening to an old story about how it was in those early days. My mind would drift off, and I could picture the sea. I could hear the captain. I could almost touch the fish he was hauling in. And then my heart would race when I would hear the old captain tell me, "Well, I got a few old pictures." And somewhere along the way, this project became a passion that I had to pursue. If you, as a reader, enjoy this book half as much as I have enjoyed putting it together, then I believe we'll both be happy.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.